Friends around the world, this is Samay Community Radio, and I'm your today's host, Srikanth. Week after week, we strive to bring in people who are real change makers and who impact the society with their positivity. This week is no exception, friends. We have Sachi Singh live from Lucknow right now with us to talk about Indian Railways, homeless street children, and also touch upon a little bit on labor rights and child labor and rights. So Sachi Singh is founder of an NGO called Ehsaas a decade ago, when she was quite moved by the state of these homeless, destitute kids who are roaming around in these railway stations and footpaths, and she decided to change things. She wanted the children to study and enjoy their childhood rather than face this inhumanity. From then on, her efforts were directed towards this Lucknow railway station. From child labor and police atrocities on the children, she was fighting against making sure their lives are a lot better. She opened an NGO called Ehsaas in 2002, and her Ehsaas team has ensured Charbagh railway station has become the first station in the country to be declared child labor free, which is incredible. So Sachi ji, namaste. Welcome to NRI Samay Community Radio.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Yes. Ma'am, really thank you for taking the time off to talk to our listeners today.
It is my pleasure, definitely.
Thank you.
And namaste to all your listeners also.
Thank you. And first of all, congratulations, ma'am. You and your Ehsaas team, it's a great effort that eventually paid off. Charbagh railway station was declared child labor free.
Thank you very much. It has been a long journey. And although we did not set out to work towards declaring it child labor free, we were working with children who were in difficult circumstances and also working at the railway station. But eventually we did, reach that destination, which we are humble about, and it is a continuous journey, definitely.
Absolutely, ma'am, definitely. And we're hearing these kind of conversations going on. We had recently one of our guests from Haryana, because of his efforts. Haryana was made a smoke-free city, Asia's first smoke-free city. And now I was reading about you, wherein it was mentioned that because of Sachi's efforts, Charbagh railway station was declared child labor-free. It feels incredible that we are heading in the right direction. Also,
right.
Yeah. Also, Sachi ji, let me ask you about this. UNICEF, that means the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund, it estimates that there are approximately 100 million street children worldwide, and that number is consistently growing. There are also about 40 million children in Latin America and 18 million in India. These are staggering numbers. Ma'am, who are these kids and why do they become homeless, madam, in the first place?
Well, if we go by UNICEF's definition itself, they define street children as children who are, either working or not working, and without any adult supervision, and have made their street their own place to stay. But talking about India, and our own experience, where we identify these children into, two broad groups. There are children who are alone on the streets and are working for their survival. And on the other hand, there are children who are living with their families on the streets or are living with their families in slums and are coming and spending a lot of their time on the street. They may be working or they may not be working. At the same time, this is a very heterogeneous group. So there are a lot of abandoned children also. There are children, who have run away from their homes. And there are children who are maybe abducted or trafficked and, have been forced to work on the streets, on street dhabas, etc. And it's like, a lot of these children are there because the environment in their homes, and I'm definitely not using just poverty as a reason, but the environment in the house is sometimes abusive and violent sometimes, the main reason that we have found is, alcoholism, uh, father's alcoholism being a big reason for children running away from homes, because of which there is violence in the family. And this violence may not be all the time directed towards the child, but may be directed towards the mother. But the overall environment in the house is such which pushes the child away from the home. Sometimes children are forced to be on the street to work and to fend for their family. So these are children who are there because of circumstances.
Wow. Yeah, and you mentioned about alcoholism, which is the primary reason why all these kids end up in these streets. Ma'am,
Right.
why do they end up in these railway stations or streets? Is this some kind of safe haven for them to live? A lot of these kids end up in railway stations, right?
Oh, it is definitely not a safe haven. But you understand, that the railways connectivity is so good, and this is an easy way for children to travel because they can go without tickets also and without being identified from one place to another. So when they have to run from their house, the rail station, the railways becomes the easy option for them to run away as compared to, any other means of transport. So the railway station, and also it gradually has become a source of earning place also for children over so many years, where there are vendors on the stations. They employ these children at their stalls, and these children would sell tobacco packets on the like just vending small things, and make a living out of that. And that's why it becomes children are there on railway stations. And there is an estimate where an organization by the name of Railway Children had done a study in India. In just 60 locations of the country, there are nearly, you can say, over 1 lakh children at a given time. Wow. So that, that higher number. So, and it says, that per day nearly 15,697 new children arrive at railway stations in India.
My God.
So that's a huge number.
Huge number, and a lot of.
And it's not just and this study is not of the entire country and all the stations. It's just 60 locations. So it is a phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah, it's a mind-boggling. Young little kids, very innocent. They don't know what they're up to, and just in.
And it could.
Go ahead, madam.
Yeah, right. And they run away for maybe a small reason of being slapped for the first time also, or a big reason like of abuse in the house. So it can be anything, and then they get lost in the city. Yeah.
Ma'am, you deal with so many of these kids, for sure. It's been 10 years you've been working. Well, fundamentally, you mentioned that a reason could be somebody slapping them, or a reason could be a dad consistently drinking and then beating their moms. And then, can you tell us a few of these instances of why these kids they really run away?
Well, I mean, it's like when you ask me that question, there are like so many children that, just come before my eyes, and each having more or less a similar story to narrate, that there was a little boy who, his father would every day come, he was constantly, and he was just 7 years of age, and he had like 2 elder siblings also. So how he shared his story is when he said, the father would every day come and beat the mother. And then the mother just one day said, you leave the house.
Oh.
Yeah. So, and whatever that little child must have understood at that moment, and he left the house and got onto a train, and we found him at the Lucknow railway station.
Oh my God.
So over the years, and he doesn't remember his way back.
Oh.
Because he was so small.
Right.
When he left home. So sometimes when older children leave home, they know the address, they know, some contact. But this little boy, he knew nothing. So right now, although he's in a safe place, he's in a shelter, he's studying and going to school, and and he's has a smile on his face, which gives a smile on our face also. But that little boy, he says that I would go home if everything was right in my house. So there are, these instances where children leave home and are away from their family because of such a reason, right?
Yeah, I understand. This is really hard to take it as well. Many studies also determine that these street children are mostly boys aged between 10 and 14, and also increasingly younger children are being affected. So, what does your study reveal, ma'am? How old are these boys or even girls? We see very less girls, but how old are these people?
Yeah. Our study also says similar, actually. Like we found, between 6 to 9 years, nearly 12% children, and between 10 to 12, nearly 40%, and around in between 13 to 15 is more or less similar, actually, nearly 39, and between 16 to 18 is 10%. Till now, it's like it's this between 10 to 15, then, nearly 79% of children are between the age group of 10 to 15. But between 6 to 9 also, the numbers are increasing. 12% is, according to me, it is a large number also.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that younger child. But these are mostly children, who would come from the local area also, and not from outside the city, maybe.
Oh, okay. So it's like some people get onto the train and then end up at Lucknow railway station, like you mentioned earlier, and there are a lot of kids from the local from the same place.
Right, from the same place, from Lucknow itself, coming from the nearby slums. So the younger age group would include more of those children also, who would come with, from the nearby slums.
Yeah. It's just mind-boggling to imagine kids staying alone like that on footpaths and railway station platforms and all. We also see all these various movies where they portray the life of these kids being vulnerable to some kind of heinous people who exploit them. So what kind of difficulties do these innocent kids face, Sachi ji?
It's like if I could share my personal experience, and initially I started working, I was actually shocked to see what all they were going through. There are things that, they go through a lot of things that you can imagine, but they go through a lot of things you can't even imagine. You can't think of those issues like picking up dead bodies. So it's and when they shared those instances, it was an eye-opener for us also. It was like, so it's they're abused by older boys, by the police, by people who are ill-intentioned, sexually, physically, and emotionally abusing them, using them and exploiting them.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And I don't think even a single person in our country would have ever missed the sight of these small young kids roaming around alone in railway stations, either by sweeping, begging, or picking trash, or even traveling an endless journey. They don't know where they're going as well. So many people just watch and move on. And I wanted to really understand, Sachi ji, because yours is an incredible story. What motivated you to take up such an effort to rescue children from labor? This is the toughest thing to handle, right? But what motivated you? What's the trigger point?
I think it was just a choice which I made at a very young age when I was in class 8th or 10th, between that period. Mm-hmm. That I would, it's a choice, that you would just, because as you said, everybody can see children. And as a child, I also saw many children, and I've had a good childhood. So the question always, would we just sit and worry and talk about it, or do something? At that age also, I had that understanding I may not be able to change everything. But I would always wanted to change some children's lives. But by God's grace, I think it things moved in the right direction, and I did my studies accordingly, and studied child development, etc., to be able to contribute to and make a difference, actually. So it's a choice, that, and it's a learning also that, we do have laws and we have policies and we have a lot of things in our country. But my understanding was that those can only be instruments, but people can make change. And I just made a choice to be, on that side of the, that side of the, group where we don't just worry and we don't just discuss, and it's not just our concern, but we make a small change also.
Yeah, it's a huge change, madam. Bringing all these kids and then making sure they get proper food and education. I am 100% sure that these kids would be malnutrition, a lot of problems, and lack of education. Your work is incredible. And then coming to your Ehsaas NGO you started, when I was going through the vision document, you say that you'd strive towards making society and systems friendly and protective for these young kids. In the last decade, our country progressed on multiple folds. Do you think our society and systems have become child-friendly, madam?
Well, there has definitely been a lot of positive steps taken by the government. Like we have the Child Rights Commission, we have the new Juvenile Justice Law, and we do have the Offences Against Children Act now, Right to Education, and also now the government has launched a new scheme by the name of Integrated Child Protection Scheme, which would converge all the existing child protection schemes for children. But and a lot of training of police and other agencies that work with children is happening, and there is definitely a greater understanding for the need and for action to be taken, for creating child-friendly and protective systems. And a lot, but still, we are faced with issues of child labor, child trafficking. So a lot of things are still missing. But definitely that awareness and that will is being reflected. But a lot more needs to be done, because there is a lot of lack of awareness to deal with such kind of issues also. Right. Generally, it's not just the law, but like create the implementation of it has to come more effectively, and more the common man also needs to be involved in these issues, because the government cannot reach to each and every child. That's my personal this thing. And for that, we need to create more trained manpower and more, because a lot of issues, the protection issues that are happening within the homes of the child. Like, of late, a lot of issues have been reflected in the media also, where children have been abused within their homes. And we do not have a proper system to deal with those issues right now. And also the monitoring of shelter homes. So those kind of systems, but need to be still strengthened. But definitely there is a lot happening across the country, whether it is child labor, whether it is trafficking, whether it is abuse. So a lot of steps are being taken by the government as well as the NGOs to address these issues. So there is greater awareness and a lot of activism also.
Oh yeah. Activism has grown in the past 5 years or so, very much. And let's take this scenario here, ma'am. You go to a railway station. You find these homeless, destitute kids. I wanted to get listeners a sense of what happens at Ehsaas. Okay, so
sure.
You go to a railway station. You see a kid who's roaming around, and you find these kids as homeless, destitute, or whatever it is. And then what happens? What does Ehsaas do from there?
Before that, I'd like to give a little background on, how we, what insight we developed when we started working with these children at the railway platform. So we realized that there are some old children at the station who have been living from a very long time. And at the same time, there are new children who come every day at the railway station. So they may be, again, abandoned, runaways, they may be lost children who just are, left in the train or lost their way and have reached the station. So both of these children are either in need of care and protection, or they actually reached the police when they became in conflict with law. So a lot of the older children actually became in conflict with law, or did some activities which are considered unlawful and are caught on the wrong side of the law. But at the beginning of it all, there were actually children who had just come on the street and needed some care and protection. But the circumstances led them to do survival crimes, and then they, so the general perception of the people was that these are all thieves, all children on the railway. Like when we started, there were around 250 to 300 children on the railway station coming from in and around. So, and the general perception of the people was that they can never change.
Right.
So so we had to develop separate strategies for both these groups of children. So the older children who have been living on the railway platform, with them our strategy is different, and the child who is new at the railway platform, with that child our strategy is different. So we said if the new children are removed from the railway station before they fall in the hands of wrong people, because any new child would stay on the railway platform only if he gets some protection from an older boy or a person who will exploit him and use him and make him work in return to, giving him protection on the railway platform. So this child needs to be removed from the railway platform. So our main focus from 2006 actually became in identifying new children. So because like in all the metros today, there are so many children on the railway station, and Lucknow was also heading towards that. So our understanding was that, these children did not, in the bigger cities, did not come in one day. Had there been a system to identify these new children who come to the railway platform, and before they are sucked into that whole vicious cycle, they are maybe removed from the railway platform and mainstreamed. Right. I was actually trying to explain, what is like the common trajectory of a child who would come to a railway platform. So any new child who comes to a railway station, make some acquaintances. He would start by begging or doing odd jobs, and then he would fall prey to some bad habits, gambling, substance abuse, etc. And then, then he would be forced to do some petty crimes, like survival crimes. And then he ends up doing some bigger crimes, or by getting attached to some bigger gangs, or he might just end up in a juvenile home, sort of. So if he gets attached to bigger gangs, then he would remain safe. So that was our understanding of all the children, which the children had shared with us, And we had seen over, 3-4 years that how some teenagers had gone towards this crime. So we started intervening at the stage first, where the child starts making acquaintances. So when we intervene at that level, then we prevent the child from going and becoming, a workforce at the station, and going towards the trajectory of, doing in that whole vicious cycle of gambling and substance abuse, etc. So since we started doing that, the number of children at the railway station would not increase, and that is why how we address the issue became simpler, because then there are a handful of older boys whom we have to motivate and show the change in the lives of these new children whom we could motivate to leave the railway station.
Right.
Because it was also easier to motivate these children to leave the railway platform than those who had spent their entire childhood at the railway station.
Oh, right.
So, once the child comes to our shelter, so we have a small drop-in shelter next to the station. So once we identify this child at the railway platform, we inform him about this facility next to the station. And it is a choice, that we give them the feeling that he can choose to come here. It's an open shelter. So for children on the streets, as you would understand, freedom is very important to them.
Right.
So they cannot be locked. They cannot be forced to stay. So it has to be a choice that he makes. So our field facilitator would ask the child to come and see this place, and once he sees, and if he likes, he can stay. So most of the time children stay, because they see other children also around, and they have the sense of freedom also. So once he's at the shelter, then our counseling team works with that child. Before, prior to that, his basic needs, food, health, clothing, shelter, all that is taken care of. And then identify, why he came to the street, what he wants to do. So an individual care plan is made for every child. So he may choose to go home. He may choose to go to a shelter. He may choose to, learn some vocational trade. Or he may choose to go to we have a permanent shelter by the name of Gharonda. So those are the options that are there for the child. And then through several counseling sessions, the child is facilitated to make a decision. So, and accordingly, his entire care plan is made.
Oh, okay. And when you talk to these kids, it's not so easy, as you mentioned. Freedom is one critical aspect of their lives. That's the reason they chose to be there. So, what techniques you use, ma'am? Does he get convinced really quick, and then, of course, you're saying that your facility would motivate them to stay around. So,
couple of things which have really worked, Yeah, sorry.
No,
yeah, you were saying something? Yeah. No. Couple of things that have really worked is some of the older boys are now our team members. So one is we are easily, so there are these 17, 18-year-old boys who now work as peer educators and team members to
Excellent.
convince these children that, we have left street and now we are, with this organization and this is what we do. And come and see. So that threat of, so there is more familiarity, they are able to get convinced better, for one thing. And the other thing is that we have to have like a pull force at the shelter. So that, works more with love and affection and care, because these children, they can earn money. They are, very smart. They are street smart. They are independent. So, or they can feed themselves, and if they actually choose, they can feed a friend also, because they have that much, grit. So the only bonding that keeps them to be going back to the street is the environment of love and care that we create at our shelter.
Right.
And the bonding between the care, our team members with the child, that he feels that somebody cares for me.
Yes,
and,
that's true.
And genuinely cares for me. Then he, and that's one thing that works to keep them. It's a gradual weaning of the street, actually. We can't say that we just can, uplift them from the street and put them at the shelter. It's a gradual process.
Yes, and also the flip side is you might see a few of these kids even running away again, and it's really tough. Do you have any instances of these kids saying that I can't stay in the facility anymore, I wanted to move out, something of this nature?
Yeah, definitely. Sometimes it's very frustrating also, that we know that and he also knows that he's putting himself at risk. But definitely there are instances where children say that, I need to go and earn money because, I need to do that. So then again, it's the whole team effort on counseling and of the counselors' efforts and the shelter team's efforts to build that kind of rapport, to counsel the child, that to help him make a better choice, actually. But all the time, it's not always success also. I mean, let me be very honest. Sometimes some children actually choose to go back on the street. Yeah.
And
Right.
as when you mentioned earlier that alcohol is the main reason why he comes out, and on the flip side, once he comes out, the substance abuse, right? There are some few. I've heard in my childhood that they take this substance which is like typewriter ink or something, and then there's some weird.
It's like the.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. You're right. It's like the there's this thinner. That it's an ink remover actually.
Right.
Right. So yeah.
So is there any way that these guys, at least we know that there are these kids who got used to this kind of substance abuse. So is there any way that to work out to remove all of these basic things that are reachable to these people and protect them, madam? Is that something you have come across?
The substance abuse?
Yes. How does somebody make sure that at least we have to be making sure that these guys doesn't get these drugs or these substances that make them make their lives far miserable, right? So do you work on that front as well?
Definitely. We have children who have left abuse after going to the addiction centers, and but a lot of motivation is required. And recently there is this thing of the sale of these the ingredient which causes this whitener. It is being reviewed, so that is there. But it's more that one-to-one interaction that we have with the child, which would help him get off these drugs.
Drugs, that's true.
Yeah.
And
how the availability actually, how the police and the administration has to work towards ensuring that these substances are not accessible to the children.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's the fundamental thing, making sure that these kids are not, at least these substances shouldn't be
And not a
accessible.
lot of headway has been made in that direction, you know. So it is something that needs to be worked on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Sachi ji, when I was reading about you, I've spent some time reading about you. It took close to 10 years before at least getting, it's like a milestone, right? Saying that Charbagh railway station is no longer having child labor, and that declaration is definitely a milestone. So why would it take so long? It's 10 years, and you mentioned that this the rate at which this child labor is growing in railway stations and kids ending up in footpaths is exponentially growing in our country. So, do you have some other organizations, some other government agencies working on the similar front like you?
Definitely, I think there are lots of organizations across the country who are working on these issues. And before Ehsaas also, a lot of organizations have been doing wonderful work, and successfully so. But 10 years, you're saying it's, the journey would continue, but because railway does not have any policy regarding the children. So initially there was complete denial. When we would meet the senior authorities, they would simply deny that there are children and they are their responsibility. So that was a big challenge actually, to get the railway authorities accountable and responsive towards this issue. So when they started seeing the change actually, and the whole process actually at the railway station, let me just again say, we didn't really work towards making it child labor free. We worked towards making it more child friendly and child protective. So when we asked the railways that, you instruct your vendors that they should not employ children on the railway platform, on their stalls. And when they find a child, so when you tell someone, do not do this, then we also empower them to make a positive, contribution, and say, if you find a child, you bring the child to the police station, or you bring the child to the Ehsaas child protection booth, and in that way you would be protecting that child. Because most of them thought that when they are giving work to that child, they are actually, going to help him. So we said, you're not helping him. If you actually want to help him, you bring him to a safe place. So, and a lot of them now do that. So it's the entire railway community at the station, if I can call that, identifies children who come to the railway station. So we wanted to create a place which is free of abuse and exploitation for children. So children still come, but once they come, then these vendors would not employ these children. And they would identify them, as vulnerable children and bring them to a safe place. Maybe just make a call and say, there's this child who is lost, but otherwise that lost child would have got a job, at that station. But now what happens is, when a lost child comes to the station, or a runaway child comes to the station, and anybody who sees that child, he would inform the police or the child protection booth, or we have a childline service also across the country. So that is also at Lucknow. He would just inform those people that there is a child who is vulnerable and needs to. So it becomes more preventive.
Right. Absolutely preventive.
Right.
Yeah, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And I've seen the success stories of Ehsaas. I've went through a few of the documents that are there on the website, and it's definitely brain tickling to read few stories. You have finally made sure these kids reach their parents, right? So,
Right.
Can you mention a couple of them? How do you counsel these kids, and then how do you counsel the parents, and then how do you make sure that they both come together finally?
Well, our first, if it's a different groups of children, if it's a runaway child, then and he chooses to return home, and he gives some kind of, either he would give a number or some locality. It is through the police network that we trace the child's address. Uh-huh. Because there is a thana, there is a police station there, and then we inform them that there is this child and his parents need to be traced, and then they would inform. So either we would directly inform the child if we have the direct number, or if we do not, then we would inform the police station, the nearby police station, to reach out to the parents, and they do. So, and that is how the parent would know that the child is here, and then they would come to take the child, and then the entire family counseling sessions also take place, and then the appropriate authority here is the Child Welfare Committee, which would then meet both the child and the family and reunify the child. But sometimes there are instances like recently there was this girl who was from West Bengal actually, and a neighbor had taken her for work to New Delhi. And when she reached there, she found that it was a very unsafe place, and the girls who had been staying there before her were involved in maybe as she shared, like prostitution activities. So she ran away from there. And when she ran away from there, she reached Lucknow station. And when she reached here, then and she told her story, then again, then we had to get the whole FIR and all the case and everything, and reunify the child. So, and during the reunification process, the child stays at a shelter, and the parents were informed, and a local organization was informed, and they are following up with this girl who is now reunified with her parents to see that the family gets enough support so that this girl is not re-trafficked to any place. Yeah.
Wow. These stories are really heart-touching.
And they're like, and there's this boy, they're like endless stories actually. So there's this boy who's run 8 times from his house.
Wow.
So eight times, he would always steal some money and run. And when the money would finish, he would come to our shelter actually.
Oh.
So because he knew he would be reunified. So then finally, we wanted to identify what is the real reason that he's running away again and again. It cannot just be, that he wants to go and spend the money. So one of our caseworkers actually went and stayed with the family for half a day and interacted. It's a huge joint family. So there is a lot of support. There's a grandmother, there is an uncle who would actually come, and there was so much love and affection in the family, but still this child would run. So just staying there with that child that day and understanding that he was actually all the time being compared to his sibling. So that, really frustrated him, and he would run. So that counseling of the family, and last 3 years now, that child is home. So it's a huge range of, every child is different. And that's how we treat every child, that he has his own specific needs, and he needs to be treated accordingly.
Absolutely. And what's the role of this National Commission for Protection of Child Rights? And we recently had Shanta Sinha ji, the Raman Magsaysay Award winner, as well on our show, NR Samay. So do you guys work together, ma'am, or how does this ecosystem
Right now, I think
Go ahead. Please.
Right now, the National Child Rights Commission is actually taking a very positive role, especially for children on railway platforms. They have drafted some guidelines also to be given to the Ministry of Women and Child Development and to the Railway Ministry. And they are working with both these ministries to work out, and they have shared the Lucknow model and other models also with at various forums where how these children need to be rescued and rehabilitated. So they are playing a very positive and proactive role in this.
Very good,
Yeah.
very good. We are hearing about this child protection booths in railway stations right now. Previously, all this denial saying that there's nothing happening at railway stations, but eventually I see that after all your efforts, these child protection booths are showing up. So what role does these booths play, ma'am? And is it something that they're expanding across the board, or it's right now with Lucknow railway station?
And they are definitely at some other stations also. I think in Delhi definitely there is. Our strategy for making this child protection booth is when we set out to create a child-friendly railway station where there is protective environment and that no child is at risk of abuse or exploitation of any form. So there needs to be larger awareness that anybody who sees a child who is alone and at risk should feel empowered to do something, which initially they would just ignore the child. So to making it simpler for a passenger or a vendor or a porter to be able to assist the child. So the child protection booth works as, like this person may not just be able to take the child all the way to the shelter. So he can hand over the child to the child protection booth. That's one thing. The other would be, the child himself. Like if it's a lost child, so there are some pictures on, so the child understands this is a, it has something to do with children. If he can't read, for example, if he can read, he can just read that this is a child help booth. So the children sometimes come on their own also for assistance. That I missed my train or something. So and it's like a first aid this for children coming from, because there are still children coming from the nearby slums, and that is our challenge still, where sometimes children are coming from the nearby slums. So these children again and again, as I said, the older children, it's a long-term strategy with them. Each child takes his own journey. So we constantly keep working with that child, and as a principal, we never give up on any child. So just saying that, when the opportunities are here, and you can step towards those opportunities. Absolutely. So that child protection booth actually works as, that kind of assistance for people who want to help the child, and also the child himself. Herself, right.
Great. So as I was trying to ask that question, probably before wrapping up, I was wondering, how could people who really think that this is a great cause and work for this social cause, what kind of help can they do to Ehsaas or any of this? And I think the first answer that you gave us was making sure that they take them to this child protection booth. Of course, it's not available everywhere, but can you really elaborate on how listeners or people around the world who listen to this or who come across your story, how can they help with this whole process, madam?
First and foremost, I think, is just the understanding that a lot of people, as you said earlier also, feel that nothing can be done, and they all see the children. So, but that small step, if you just take the child to the police station also, something would be done. That's one thing. That's, a very small step if you're asking, like that. But everybody may not be here. So, what we are actually looking for a lot of support to create more trained persons to work with, especially in the local areas from where children are coming to beg, which, as I said, is still our challenge, where families are sending the children and children are living with the family.
Right.
So when children are living with the family, it becomes more difficult for us because we cannot shift them to shelters. So we need to work with the family also. So right now we do not have that kind of a resource to work in the slum areas. One slum area we have, I must share, that we adopted a slum area in the city, and every child from that area is now going to school.
Oh, very good.
So, right. And at the same time, we are working at the livelihood options and adult education in that area, because that's one neglected area. And we want to expand this so that the children coming on the streets, not just on the railway platform, or children working in, working as laborers in hotels and, street dhabas, what we call, do not come if we are able to work intensively on a family-based and community-based model. So if that kind of support in terms of resources we definitely need,
Absolutely.
and to create a volunteer base to be able to help these children.
Yeah, ma'am, I think Ehsaas is a great cause. Definitely, it's heart-touching to see someone focusing on one specific area and delivering results, and then proving to the world that this is some cause that each one could really make a difference. So, how do you receive help and support, and what are the channels in which somebody can support Ehsaas?
Right. But I would also just I would like to add, that we got a lot of, we could not have done this without the support of the railways and the police force at the Lucknow station. And because their involvement was extremely important.
Yes.
Because railways not having a policy, but setting up these child protection booths, or the child welfare officers at the police stations, that were appointed by senior police officers, and their involvement. And so that has been very, very critical in being able to do it. Ehsaas is a very small organization, and we could not have done it alone. And also a lot of other organizations who supported us in doing this is extremely important. The question that you were asking is how we how we get,
right.
Right. So, when we started off by this understanding, that everybody can see children. So we need it, and everybody wants to do. If there is a platform for people to do, then and they are able to see that what change is happening.
Right.
So we have a lot of local resource mobilization,
okay,
and volunteers who, it's an ownership, that it is and these children are here and we should do something in our own way. So we call them the Press Street children. So somebody would donate in kind, somebody would donate in, monetary terms, and somebody would come and donate their time.
Right.
On the other hand, we also work with donor agencies we work with UNICEF and Railway Children, and that ways. And we have a small, candle making and handmade paper unit, the sale of which gets us some resources.
Oh, okay.
So that is our main.
Yeah. For more on this, I think people can visit ehsaas.org.in, ehsaas.org.in, right? Yes.
So that's our website, and also send us a mail if anybody wants to have any more details, which our mail ID is also on our website.
Yeah. Can you, if it is right now possible, can you tell the email ID, madam?
Sure. It's Ehsaas, LKO, at gmail.com.
Ehsaas, LKO at gmail.com. EHSAAS, LKO at gmail.com. Incredible. Madam, more than anybody else in this world, I wish to really thank your family members first. I'm sure incredible support from there, and without which nothing.
Definitely.
Yeah. No, we as, from our NRS on my desk and from all our listeners around the world, we really want to thank you for taking this time off, talking to us, explaining this critical topic in detail, and spending almost an hour. Thank you very much, Sachi ji, for your time.
No, I'm very thankful to you that you thought that it was an important issue to be taken up, and children are the most important thing for all of us, I think. And in whichever way anybody, anywhere can do something for a child, I think that's, it's not just a child, it's an entire future that we are investing in. So any investment made on children is an investment in, in the future.
Absolutely, ma'am. The great way to really close this. It's like any investment on an innocent little small kids is a great investment for our future, and definitely we have to make this coming generations also safe and secure, along with we living in this generation, right? So, great.
Definitely.
Thank you very much, Sachi ji.
Thank you, Shrikant. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, friends, that's our show today, where we focused pretty much in detail about kids who are living homeless, destitute, and railway stations, often begging, picking through the trash for a living, with no families or adult supervision of any kind, vulnerable to all kind of exploitation and abuse. We had amazing women, Sachi Singh, who really paved a way, or she literally showed a solution in handling this kind of situations where we have young innocent kids being vulnerable to all kinds of abuse. So while the truth is that Indian railway stations or Indian Railways is one of the world's largest network, comprising more than 100,000 kilometers of track or route of 65,000 kilometers, it's also a bitter truth that we see a lot of homeless street children ending up in these railway stations. And we at NRI Samay Desk want to thank Sachi Singh for taking her time of coming to our show today. And we hope you've had a wonderful time listening to Sachi Singh. Thank you very much for tuning in. Do tune into NRI Samay live radio every week, Saturday and Sunday, same time, 8 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 9:30 p.m. India time, and London time, 4 p.m. Thank you very much, friends. Listen to this music. Thank you.